Welcome to Lawyers in the House with Motley. Wish you had a lawyer in the family? Now you do. Here's your host, Veronica Waters.
Welcome to the house, Lawyers in the House with Motley on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters. Come on in, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. We're hoping to bring you another fantastic episode this week, and I think that you're going to like this one because we have an extra special guest in the house with us today. This episode, interestingly enough, made me think of Prince, who was one of my all-time favorite artists. Okay, bear with me. I know this doesn't seem like there's a connection here. Purple Rain is one of my all-time favorite movies and albums. And I can remember a friend actually having the vinyl album when we were little, and we listened to that album ad infinitum. I mean, constantly. It was Purple Rain left and right. And so there's a song in there. I won't call the name of the song because it's pretty sexy. But there's a section in there that we just knew we had to put our fingers on the album and spin it backwards to understand what we were hearing at the end of this particular song. We knew that we were trying to find something hidden. There were some lyrics in there that were masked, a complete jumble, until we listened to it starting at the end. Let's start from the beginning on this right now. Let's turn to some introductions here on Lawyers in the House with Motley. Back in the house with us, we have Jason Saltzman, Motley injury attorneys. Welcome back, Jason, to the house.
Good to see you again, Veronica.
You don't have to sing like I'm doing.
I can't sing as well as you, so.
Jason Saltzman has been an attorney since?
2012.
And been with Motley since?
2012.
But that's not the trick question. Trick question. Because
oh, wait,
you
no,
were
actually true. You could say I've been with Motley since I was 2 years old.
Well, that's true. That's true, too. But you also started at Motley
working,
before you even became an attorney.
Yeah, so in 2006, 2007, I started working there as a legal assistant while I was in college.
Jason Saltzman was a toddler in the halls of Motley Injury Attorneys because his dad is the managing attorney there. So he grew up with an amazing mentor watching his dad fight for the rights of injured people, and that sparked his interest in law as well. And so since you've been in law, Jason, I think you and I have talked about this before. You know you're doing the right thing. You know you're in the right place for you.
100%. Because it's always about representing individuals against corporations and insurance companies. So for me, I always feel like I'm on the right side.
How much did you think about going into other fields of law, though?
I dabbled in maybe my second year of law school. I was interested in a little bit of entertainment law. I interned at Sony Music up in New York for the summer. And
oh, that's exciting.
Living in New York was exciting. I wasn't enjoying the entertainment stuff as much because it was really contractual, and I really enjoyed being more, adversarial. I like to fight, sometimes. And I felt like entertainment law was a little bit more, it was just too much, contracts, templates, that kind of thing. I was much more into the idea of advocating for an individual's position against another side.
And those numbers and black and white figures just weren't doing it for you? Not just
real.
Too like, oh my God, do I have to look at yet another printout? Please
exactly.
Take me away from here.
Exactly.
Jason Saltzman, that was at Tulane Law School.
Yes.
For law school. And then you came right here and started working at Motley.
Yep, that's all I've ever done since I graduated.
Love it. Thank you. Welcome back to the house. And today our extra special guest on Lawyers in the House with Motley on WSB is somebody that Jason knows pretty well from his work through Motley, but she doesn't work at Motley. Her name is Amber Bishop, and she is an accident reconstructionist.
Also an attorney, but not practicing.
And an attorney.
Yes. I am an attorney since 2015, but I am a crash reconstructionist. I'm one of the owners of Weed Reconstruction and Expert Consulting. We investigate serious injury and fatality collisions. We work with some amazing attorneys like Jason. We also do quite a bit of insurance defense and defense work. But yeah, an accident reconstructionist.
All right. So that is what our show is about today. Thank you so much for being in the house, Amber and Jason.
Thank you for having us.
Accident reconstruction is what we're talking about today here on Lawyers in the House with Motley on WSB. Now, Oxford English Dictionary defines accident as an unfortunate and typically unforeseen event, a disaster, a mishap. Okay, so listen, if you're a personal injury client, you already know what an accident is full well, right? We all know what that is. We know what accidents are when they happen, but if only we could tell how and why they happen. If only there was somebody who could rewind time, spin everything back, and pinpoint what went wrong. And today we're finding out there is. Her name is Amber Bishop, and I've got to find out from Jason Saltzman, how in the world did you meet Amber anyway?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I think it was how many years ago? 4 or 5 years ago now. Amber and her partner Shelly Weed came and did a seminar at our office, and that's when I first met them. And we'd been using accident reconstructionists in the past too, but ever since I met them, I usually go for Amber and Shelly before the defense counsel can get to them. We've had a lot of cases together over the last few years, and sometimes you're in a situation where you've got a client with a really serious injury and you just don't know what happened in that accident, and you need to hire someone like Amber to help you figure out what went wrong and kind of get some raw data and be able to kind of, what's the word? They're called reconstructionists. Yeah, exactly. Reconstruct the accident. I mean, that's really what it's about.
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing what they can do, too. I mean, we've been in situations before where you have literally no idea what happened. The officer has no idea what happened, conflicting statements, and they're able to piece it together. I don't know what magic they do, but they're able to do it.
Well, we are going to find out about some of that magic. Amber Bishop, tell me a little bit about accident reconstruction. Exactly what is it? Is it, or maybe the better question is it exactly what it sounds like?
It is exactly what it sounds like. Accident reconstruction is the science of investigating collisions. I use physics, math, technology to determine the facts and circumstances that existed when a crash happened. We are looking at really 3 different types of evidence. You're looking at the vehicle, you're looking at where the crash happened, the scene, and then the third piece is the drivers. The human factors. We're interested in what the driver was doing. So the very first thing we do is go out and preserve evidence. In an ideal world, we're called pretty close in time to when a crash happens. I've been called within hours of a collision occurring, and we've been called days or weeks or months. I mean, unfortunately, I've also been called years after a crash happens, but that's not an ideal situation.
Wow. Can you do something that's years after?
We can, depending on, in those situations, we're often relying on what like GSP did, the troopers, the responding agents, we're having to file some open records requests, and oftentimes the world of evidence that we're dealing with in those situations is limited, but we can still offer limited opinions in most cases.
That's incredible. And I told you she's starting from the end and she's rewinding time to find out what happened. How did you get into this field to begin with? You told me that you're an attorney, which I did not know. So that is such an extra layer of this. This has got to help you in these cases. But how did you even start this? Were you like the kid who was playing with Hot Wheels and Tonka trucks when you were a kid and excelling in every physics class?
She's told me she uses Tonka trucks all the time.
I do. I've got some toy cars in my closet that I pull out when Jason and I are doing Zooms.
Yes.
But my dad and I grew up working on cars. I was a physics major in undergrad. I worked at the CDC for almost a decade, and then decided that I needed a little bit more people in my life. So went to law school, practiced as a corporate litigator for about 4 years, and then decided I miss science. So if you put together law and science and my love of cars, this has really kind of been the perfect career, choice for me.
Do I have to be a physics major in order to be an accident reconstructionist, or what are the pathways? Are there, can anybody get certified? Could I go do it now?
So I see typically 2 paths. We've typically got people with hard science and math backgrounds, engineers. The other path that people typically take is their law enforcement, and then they get specialized training in crash reconstruction. They end up taking a lot of math and science courses so that they understand the physics of a crash.
Okay.
So those are the 2 typical. I'm sure you're a wicked smart lady. I'm sure you could get a math or science degree or become an officer if you wanted to. You let me know. We'll keep a spot for you at REC.
It's interesting, too, that you mentioned that so many people from law enforcement backgrounds actually become accident reconstructionists. reconstructionists themselves? Because the police also do reconstructions, right? Are they hiring you or someone like you when they're doing it, or do they have their own in-house folks?
So most police jurisdictions have a specialized unit, a traffic unit that is doing the crash reconstruction. GSP, the Georgia State Police, will offer their services to local, smaller jurisdictions that don't have those people on staff. But most of the time, it's the officers doing it.
Okay. Now, Jason, I've heard Montlick talk about different investigators that you guys have on staff, but this is different from.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, because if I have an investigator on staff, he's going out to meet with maybe a witness or take photos of something. I'm hiring someone like Amber to actually be a potential expert witness in the case, right? So if I've got a case, for instance, where let's say it's something simple. Let's say it's a who changed lanes into who type of case, and maybe I've got a really serious kind of injury. Amber, I would get Amber involved hopefully as quickly as possible in a case like that to be able to go out and look at the skid marks and be able to kind of figure out exactly what happened in that wreck, and then Amber can give her expert opinion at some point if we end up in litigation on the case.
But you said you don't always know if you're going to need an Amber or not.
No, and you don't need an accident reconstructionist in every case.
Okay.
I think that it has to be appropriate for the type of case. Generally speaking, it needs to be a serious injury case, and it also needs to be a case where either you're dealing with an insurance company that's disputing liability or the defendant's disputing liability, or and in more frequency you'll use Amber in a trucking case too, because there's a lot of types of data that you can get from a truck, like from the black box, and Amber can talk a lot more about that. But there's a lot of things that you can learn from these, very large commercial vehicles. And even if you have really good facts in a case like that, with a serious injury, you probably want to do a download of that truck anyways, because you never know what's going to come out later. And
so
you can
go on, Jason.
No, I was just saying you can learn a lot about the driver driving the truck and what was going on before that wreck as well.
Yes, she said you can pull event recording data, right, from the vehicle, but you can also learn about the driver's behavior, which is fascinating. And potentially you might catch somebody in a fib. Yes or no?
Yeah.
That's happened once or twice.
Yeah, once or twice.
How so?
So passenger vehicles, we typically get about 5 seconds of pre-crash data. So that means that we have direct insight into what a driver is doing 5 seconds before a crash. We get speed information, whether the driver's on the brakes. Depending on the manufacturer and the make and model, we can get steering input. So I can see, was the driver steering right or left, and to what degree, whether they were on the accelerator pedal, whether they responded to the crash at all by activating their brakes. Whether they were going 94 and a 45, that kind of information we can see in the electronic data.
And you've actually had a case where you found somebody who said, I was going 45 and a 45.
I swear. Okay, well, your electronic data tells on you. Yes, 90.
Yeah.
And they were going
plus.
90 and a 45?
Yes, and somebody turned left in front of them because they thought they had enough time.
Wow, the secrets of the little black box. Coming up on Lawyers in the House with Montlick, we're talking accident reconstruction and the value that an accident reconstructionist can bring to your personal injury case. Stay with us. Welcome back to the House. Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters, here with Montlick injury attorney Jason Saltzman and accident reconstruction expert Amber Bishop from Weed Reconstruction and Expert Consulting. Or if you can't remember all that, just remember REC. That's where you can find, apparently, according to Jason, some of the best expert witnesses and accident reconstructionists around Georgia. Now, let's talk about the value that something like this can bring to a case. You've told us that it's going to happen when an insurance company is fighting liability, very likely. It's going to happen in trucking cases. It's going to be serious injury, but not every personal injury case that involves a wreck is going to have an accident reconstructionist on the scene. So this is bringing out the big guns for what reason, Jason? And I know you told me that there was some complex convoy case that really showed you.
Yeah, to give an example, so I got a call a couple years ago from the parents of a younger man who he was in his 20s, and he was driving, or he was a passenger in a vehicle being driven by his girlfriend on the highway near Macon. And essentially, He's driving down the highway. He sees I think it was a Ford Explorer that was towing a Jeep. And it's kind of catty corner. It's kind of diagonally taking up 2 lanes of traffic. And according to the news reports of this, because this was a really bad accident, according to news reports, his girlfriend parks on the shoulder of the road so that he can be a good Samaritan and check on these people because they're like in the middle of the road. So at some point, while they're on the shoulder, he exits the vehicle and he gets struck by an Escalade. And he gets dragged across, I don't even remember how many feet. And the injuries were very serious. I think, if I remember correctly, I think there were some broken bones. I think there might have been a brain injury. He had, if you had looked at his back, not to get graphic, but his skin had peeled off of his back. Like, it was awful. And you get this accident report, and the officer literally could not figure out what happened. And it was just completely out of nowhere. We didn't even know which direction they were going. The officer apparently had them going in the wrong direction. Officers don't always get it right. They do what they can. Anyways, I hired Amber and Shelly to basically find out what happened, and they were able to figure it out. And it was amazing. They were able to figure out that I'll let you get into it, but there was an
What were you able to figure out, Amber?
So we inspected all of the vehicles. We downloaded the black box data from several of them, and one of the tires on the Ford that was towing the Jeep was 9 years old, very old, had a failure, resulted in the entire articulated unit rotating counterclockwise, hitting the median, coming to rest. Because that black box was still running, we got the secondary impact with the Cadillac. We were able to get the timing, say exactly where the damage came from, who hit who when, and then, the data doesn't show when the pedestrian got hit, but, we were able to say exactly what happened leading up to the impact with the pedestrian.
A play-by-play of accident reconstruction. Amber Bishop and Montlick injury attorney Jason Saltzman here on Lawyers in the House with Montlick. I'm Veronica Waters. We will be right back. Welcome back to Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here hosting 2 fabulous guests. I can't say they're both Montlick injury attorneys, I was going to say, but we've only got one Montlick injury attorney in the house today. His name is Jason Saltzman. You know him, you love him, and you're already starting to know and love Amber Bishop, who is an attorney, doesn't work with Montlick, but she works for Reed Reconstruction and
Expert Consulting.
Expert Consulting. You know them as REC because we're talking about accident reconstruction today, and that is where Amber is an expert. Jason and Amber were talking about some really interesting stuff in the first half of the show. So if you are just joining us, I don't want you to feel like you missed out. Remember, you can always subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform. Have Lawyers in the House drop into your inbox every single week. It's a gem every single time. And you can hit us up on all social platforms between shows. At Montlick Law is where you can find us. And of course, remember, you can send us a question online 24/7. Just visit lawyersinthehouse.com. Jason Saltzman, Amber Bishop, talking about accident reconstruction. Now, we left off talking about the value that something like this can bring to a case, especially one that's really in heavy dispute. And I'm fascinated by the one that you guys were just talking about, this one on the highway near Macon.
Yes. And what was interesting is from earlier we were talking about how the client got struck by a Cadillac Escalade, but because of Amber and her partner's work on the case, we were able to actually show that the vehicle that was in the middle of the highway that caused him to stop in the first place had problems, and that made a 6-figure difference in the case.
A 6-figure difference?
Absolutely, because the Escalade that hit the client only had minimum limits. So $25,000. So because we were able to get the other vehicle, it made a massive difference in the recovery for that client.
Incredible. Now, Amber and Jason have mentioned a couple of times the famous black box. And I remember the first time I heard about this, I was probably reporting on some plane crash or hearing about some plane crash, maybe when I was little. And everybody was looking for the black boxes, which, little fact, on airplanes, orange is the new black. They're not actually black, they're orange. Yes. So that the investigators can spot them out in potential wreckage, right? Are black boxes on cars orange too?
No, they typically tend to be silver. Sometimes actually they're black.
Now, I know my car is old enough that it actually doesn't have it doesn't have a black box. An event data recorder, I think, is the technical term for it in a vehicle, right?
Right.
In planes, they were called cockpit voice recorders. Or do you do accident reconstruction with planes and stuff?
No planes, no boats. We'll do big trucks, passenger vehicles. We've not had a unicycle, but I would try to do that. Bicycles, motorcycles, pedestrians.
Do motorcycles have black boxes?
There are some Kawasaki motorcycles, yes. Some Harleys, yes. Not as many as we would hope for. But 90% of the passenger vehicles sold today do have event data recorders in them. A lot of tractor trailers, it depends on the engine, but they have engine control modules that have crash-related data that we're interested in obtaining. And for a big truck specifically, it's important that we get out there, sooner rather than later, because that data does get overridden as these truck drivers are going down the road and hard stopping when people cut them off or, slamming on their brakes. So we definitely want to get out to the big trucks. The passenger vehicle crash data tends to hang around for longer.
Oh, my gosh. So it can get overwritten?
On a big truck, absolutely, yes.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah, that's like a major problem. Because what happens is it's our job as attorneys to get that evidence preserved, right? So under Georgia law and also most other state laws, you're going to, when you send a letter to a potential defendant in a case and you ask them to preserve that, whatever it is that you need them to preserve, whether it's the entire tractor trailer or a vehicle for you to inspect and do a data download, if they fail to preserve that, you will have arguments later in a litigation setting to either strike their defense or their answer, as they would call it, or you'd be able to get sanctions against them for failure to preserve the evidence. You might get a deferential jury instruction that says that because they didn't preserve this, you are to infer this, And sometimes we've got a case right now where there's a tractor trailer that was not preserved, and they drove it like over 1,000 miles. They overrode all the data. We scheduled a second inspection as well because we found a problem with the tire. Then they flipped the tire. They switched the tire. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, that's what we've got going on in another case we handle. But, the preservation of the evidence is very key in these cases. So you can't, if you're in a serious accident and there's a chance, either whether it's with a tractor trailer or it's a really disputed kind of case with a passenger vehicle, you really got to get a lawyer involved early because that evidence could be gone in just a few days.
You've got to get a lawyer involved early, but you also have to have an accident reconstructionist involved early.
But there's nothing to reconstruct if there's no evidence.
Yeah.
So the lawyer needs to get the evidence preserved and then get the accident reconstruct. Because once you get it preserved, then it's just a matter of scheduling the inspections.
Well, Amber said sometimes she gets calls within hours. So would it be somebody like you calling and saying, hey, I know I'm going to need you for this. I'm going to need your eyeballs.
Yeah, it's happened. There's been cases where we've called them 10 minutes after I got the case.
Because you just knew.
Yeah.
You just knew.
Yeah.
But there are some times when you call Amber and she's not available.
Yes, sometimes Amber is unfortunately on the other side of the case. But I like that. That's actually a good thing to me because there is this belief I guess everywhere that you can hire an expert to say anything. It's really not true. Like, we are in pursuit of the truth. It's the burden of the plaintiff to prove what happened, right? If I've got an expert that testifies both for plaintiff and defense, that's great. I want that because if she ends up having to testify at trial one day and that defense attorney says, well, how often do you testify for defense and how often do you... She's going to be able to say, I do both. And that's a very credible witness. I don't want an expert that only does plaintiff, right? So it's a good thing. I mean, it makes them very credible.
And then you get the answers, you get the truth, no matter what it is. And then maybe you don't have to write the big check either, right? To pay Amber for her services because you got them for free since the other side hired her.
Well, you'll want to hire. The thing is you always want to have, if one side has an expert, you want to also have an expert.
Okay, so you would hire another expert.
The data might be the same, but the interpretation of the data might be different.
Ooh. Do you do criminal cases too? Motley does personal injury, which is civil, but...
We do. About, I would say 60 or 65% of our case is defense. Our cases are defense, but that's insurance defense and criminal defense. And then we do about 35% personal injury with, Motley and similar firms.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about how Jason and Amber or, any attorney and any accident reconstructionist would actually sort of build this case from the end forward, starting at the end and moving backwards to find out what happened at the beginning, at the moment of impact. Where do you even begin?
So Jason gives me a call. I focus on three things. It's the scene, it's the vehicle, and then it is human factors related behavior. So the first step is get me access to the vehicles. I want to go out there. I want to scan them with a 3D scanner that preserves, the damage profile. I want to take measurements. I want to see how much crush damage there was on the front of that vehicle. I want to pull the electronic data and get all of that preserved. Next step, go to the scene. If it is a nighttime crash, we often will go out at night also. So I want to document lights. I want to see, what was the visibility. I want to see exactly what the drivers during the crash saw. We make simulations and animations to show the jury, exactly what was happening. So we collect all the data, we're analyzing it, and then the first step is have a call with Jason and give him the findings and the good, the bad, the ugly. We've had cases where, unfortunately our findings were not in his client's favor, but I think it's important that he has that information up front.
Definitely.
And then sometimes I've got nothing but great news to give him. And, we have that call. I either put it in an expert report or, maybe the case settles when he discusses my findings with opposing counsel or, we go to trial.
Yeah, you were there to be an objective eye to analyze the science and the data.
100%.
You're not talking to somebody who says, well, this is what happened. Give me my side of the story. There's no side of the story.
No,
right?
I want the math and science.
You want the math and the science, and who's going to dispute that? It is what it is.
Right.
So just like that person who said, I swear I was going 45 miles an hour in that 45, and you find out they're going 90. It's like, no, sir,
Exactly.
you were not.
And that's what, like what Amber was saying. I mean, it does come with the territory that if you're going to hire accident reconstructionists in cases, there are going to be times that you're going to get a call from your expert saying, I got nothing, Jason. Like, you're going to have that. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, I feel that most of the time that doesn't happen, but it does happen.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out, too, that from what I've seen, Montlick is not going to shy away from a fight. If you believe that you can get justice for somebody who's hurt, maybe not every firm is going to have the resources or the desire or the connections to know how to go out and find somebody who can actually do this work.
Yeah,
because I'm sure it ain't cheap.
It's not cheap. Although I do think that the amount of money you pay into it can greatly benefit your client and make it worth it. But we do have it's not a cheap thing, and our firm has the resources to do it when we need to do it. We'll do it anytime we believe we can help the person.
I'd love to hear some examples of some more cases because I find this the most fascinating thing. And I love that you can do like these cartoons or whatever to show the jury. That's so cool.
Cartoons. I love that.
Is it not I've never seen them.
So we had a case where there was an impact just between an SUV and like a small Prius. And then after the impact, you expect the vehicles based on, Newton's laws of motion, you expect the vehicles to go in, a certain direction and come to a stop within a certain amount of feet. Well, one of the vehicles after impact actually did a 180, accelerated, and then did various steering maneuvers before he ran into a gas pump. And the gentleman driving that car ended up dying, but we were able to go out, reconstruct it, pull the evidence from the vehicle despite it having been burned pretty badly, and show that it wasn't the first impact that caused the catastrophic result. It was actually driver impact after that that caused, the fatal injuries. And you wouldn't necessarily be able to prove that if you didn't bring in a crash reconstructionist that would tell you what physics would, dictate happen to those vehicles after impact.
Incredible. Jason, I know you have said that it's shocking to you sometimes what comes out of these.
Yes, for sure. I mean, it's also sometimes just shocking what we're able to learn. Like I'm always so interested in some of the things it could be something very simple like paint transfer. They can figure out based on the height of the vehicles how those impacts happened, or it could be something more complex like, engine data or, some vehicles have dash cams, thankfully, so you can review that. And then,
I need one of those.
Yeah.
You come see us. We'll put one in for you.
Okay. I think that's amazing. I wish that I had you, Amber, in my Rolodex when this guy sideswiped me at the corner of Peachtree and West Peachtree. There was paint transfer on my car from his big old tall SUV.
See, and we would go out and we'd measure your car. We'd measure his truck. We would line up the damage and show where contact was made.
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to find that
All
guy.
to get out of the $200
I'm going to call. That was
ticket.
a hit and run because he kept going and I kept going.
Oh,
I think
man.
I was like in shock. I was like, did somebody just hit my car? at this intersection? And yes, somebody did, because I saw the evidence when I stepped out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I should have chased that guy down the street, right? No, I shouldn't have chased them down the street. Okay, coming up on Lawyers in the House with Motley, we are talking about accident reconstruction today with Amber Bishop and Jason Saltzman. And as you know, it's coming up on that special time of the show. The Motley closing argument is on the way. Don't you miss it. You are back in the house, Lawyers in the House with Montlick on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters here hosting Montlick injury attorney Jason Saltzman and accident reconstructionist and attorney Amber Bishop. And it is time for what you have been aching for all hour long. It's time for the Montlick closing argument. Amber and Jason, the floor is yours.
Well, I think the big thing about this show today is that we are, as attorneys, we're in pursuit of the truth in these types of cases. So it's just so important in order to find out everything that happened. You have to make sure that you hire an attorney early if you're in a really serious injury case with disputed liability or a trucking case, or there could be other circumstances as well. But lawyer can get involved early and get that evidence preserved so that we can hire someone like Amber to help us go through it and figure out what happened.
And we are objective. Our job is to review the evidence and be completely objective. Unfortunately, sometimes police reports are incorrect. And if you don't hire an accident reconstructionist, unfortunately, some of those questions are just going to go unanswered. So if you hire, a sophisticated attorney that knows when to involve a crash reconstructionist and we can get out there early enough, we can get you answers to those questions.
I do want to talk about something that's been sort of on my mind all hour long, though. We talked about the fact that police come out and write a report, and people will be like, what's the big deal with accident reconstruction? Don't police already do this?
So unfortunately, most of the officers that respond to a scene don't have crash reconstruction training. They respond, they get information from the drivers, they put it in the report, but sometimes it's incorrect, sometimes it's incomplete, and they're not imaging the black boxes. They're not going out, they're not looking at the damage profiles. They're not doing a full analysis. They're out there for maybe 15 minutes before they go on to the next call.
They're just getting what they hear from witnesses.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
And the report itself is not admissible evidence. So
what? The police report is not?
No, it's not admissible evidence. The officer can look at it while he's testifying about what he said, what the witnesses told him, and what he saw. But, the officer didn't see the actual accident. And, of course, you're not going to need an accident reconstructionist in a, rear end kind of case, right, where it's very clear someone just rear-ended someone else. You need one when the officer doesn't get it right or can't figure out what's going on. If you have reason to believe that some evidence just didn't get to that officer, or if the officer made a decision and gave a ticket, that's not going to destroy a person's ability to pursue a claim.
Right. The ticket doesn't mean that there's no civil liability.
So long as you don't plead guilty to the ticket. No, it does not.
All right, that's so fascinating. This is listen, we could do another hour on this. I'm learning so many wrinkles. Okay, but we're out of time. So thank you so much to Amber Bishop and Jason Saltzman talking to us about accident reconstruction today. Life can only be understood backwards, but it has to be lived forwards. However, if you are hurt through no fault of your own, you might need somebody to rewind time and figure out what happened from the beginning of that. So remember this next time. We will see you on WSB. I'm Veronica Waters. Peace out.